Hey, Belugan here. Just a quick note before we kick off this new episode about our scheduling. Just wanted to let you know we are going to continue to release our normal episodes on Tuesday when we have content available for those. And these D&D episodes are going to start dropping on Thursday when we have content available for those. So something a little different. This is going to be our Session 0 intro to what this is all about. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to the Farm RPG podcast. This is Augie with a cold, and today we are doing a special first episode series for D&D on the Farm RPG.
I am Belugan. I will be the DM for this session. I think given the nature of the game we're going to play, Dungeon Master might not be the appropriate term. Maybe we should stick with GM since this is far from a traditional Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but close enough, we're going to stick with it. So today we are running Session 0, and for those who are not familiar with how tabletop role-playing games, Session 0 is often a time when the Dungeon Master or Game Master will sit down with the players and talk a little bit about the characters and the backgrounds, what the expectations are for the game. And that's kind of what we're going to do today, is talk a little bit about the players that we have for this D&D on the Farm RPG, their background with Dungeons and Dragons. We're also going to talk about the characters that they're going to play and their backgrounds, and then a little bit about how the world of Farm RPG will work with Dungeons and Dragons. So first, we'll introduce our players. As you already know, thanks to our lovely intro, we have Augie.
Hi, hello.
Now, Augie is primarily responsible for this. I don't know yet. Now, Augie is primarily interested for this. Every time we've talked in the past, I mentioned, my D&D group's going to play, but they canceled. And Augie's always like, well, if you need a player, and I will
play.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? Let's just set up a game so you can play.
Thanks.
So with that, we had to find a couple other players. And the player that Augie reached out to and grabbed is Cole.
Greetings. Salutations. Augie's still hi and hello, so that's what I'm left with.
Greetings and salutations.
They still work, though. They still work. They're good.
Now, I am dropping MTG and other property Wizards of the Coast off your name, Cole. We're going to stick with just Cole, if that's all right.
That is perfectly all right.
My subtitle on RPG Crossing, where I do a lot of role-playing, is Druid of the Coast. It's kind of a play on Wizards, plus I have played a ton of Druids. All right, and then our third player is one who I grabbed in chat and said, hey, would you be interested? And she unfortunately said, yes, I'd do that in an instant. This is Boo Bun.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
And we are super glad to have you here.
Thanks for asking to have me here. Honestly, I jump at the chance to do anything fun and different. So this is something that I would jump at the chance at, literally and figuratively.
Because it is both fun and different.
It is fun and different, yeah. An RPG based on a numbers go up, text-based farming game. I'm about it. I'm all about that.
All right. And Boobun, if you didn't recognize the art style, has also done the drawings of all the characters that are going to be played and the cover art for these episodes of the podcast.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Woo.
Resident artist.
That's right.
I love doing it. It's so fun.
I love watching it.
And you charged a very reasonable fee, I'll add.
Yes, very reasonable. Cheap is free.
That's the way to go about it. So to kick off, let's just talk a little bit about everybody's background with the game Dungeons and Dragons. I probably have rambled on plenty about it myself, but I started playing in the 90s with 2nd edition in high school up until college, when I got married, had to take care of a family. Didn't play for a long time till my kids were old enough to pick it up. And that's kind of when I restarted, probably about 2014-ish, I'm going to say. It was just a little bit before 5th edition came out. And I have been playing a lot ever since then, at virtual tabletops and play-by-post. Haven't done in-person games since high school. But I am one of the people that is occasionally accused of being a rules lawyer. I'm going to try very hard to avoid that here for the podcast. And I also frequently end up being the DM just because that seems to be the only way to consistently make sure a game happens. So there's my intro. Let's just come down the line, and we're going to come to Boo Bun and just give us a bit of your background with Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure. Yeah, I've been playing since 3.5 edition, probably in like the early 2000s, like 2002 or 3. And I moved on from that. I stopped playing after college. I played a lot in college, and I like kind of put it on the back burner because I didn't really like 4th edition, and none of my friends played. So, and then when 5th edition came out, I picked that back up because it's so user friendly. I love it. But currently, I'm actually playing I'm playing 2nd edition with a group of friends, actually in person, and they're all a little bit older than me, so they all love 2nd edition, and I just can't wrap my head around THAC0. Personally, it's like homework the game, but yeah, I just love role. I love role play, so I stick it out for them because I just like hanging out and playing a game.
Yeah, 2nd and 1st edition, all those things were backwards with armor class and THAC0 and those kind of things. So
it's so hard to keep track of. It's so hard.
Yeah, when I played with my kids, 2nd edition is what I started with, and THAC0 was the reason why my youngest quit and agreed to start again with 5th edition when he went away. But I just ended up printing out on a piece of paper everything they needed to know.
I feel like I ask my DM how I'm supposed to roll literally every session because we go like a month in between, and I'm like, I forgot all of this already. I'm so sorry. And he just like rolls his eyes at me. So
rolls his eyes and then rolls a dice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scarily rolls the dice.
So Augie, what is your background with Dungeons and Dragons?
The first time that I ever played, it was probably 2014 or 2015. And then I played pretty consistently with one group for like 3 years. We'd play either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on work schedules. It was really, really fun. And then, one person got a new job, and then somebody moved, and then we tried to keep it going, and then eventually I moved. And they play in person, so I unfortunately could not do that from a distance. And I don't know, I like playing D&D because it's just, I have a lot of random ideas when it comes to like, the creative process and just seeing a situation and thinking, oh, that could be fun. And it's just a really cool and easy way to like use that creative process and just have fun with friends.
Yeah, I love that. For me, it's become about the collaborative storytelling is what I enjoy the most about the game. That and I love digging into the nitty-gritty of tactical combat. Not what we're going to do with this game, but I love that aspect of it as well. And lastly, let's come to Cole. Tell us about your background at Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure. So I think I'm definitely the most inexperienced of the group. I last played in elementary school, which if you do the math, you can quickly determine my age compared to everyone else's. That was in about the mid-2000s, which I've been told is around 3rd edition. And then I ended up moving when I started middle school, so didn't really have the same group that would play. And yeah, I guess since then, when people end up streaming some of the sessions on Twitch, I'll watch, but I think this is the first time I've really played an actual game since elementary school. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm glad I'll be here for having no clue what's going on, but I'll try my best.
None of us will know what's
That's
going
all
on
right.
except for Belligan. Even then, sometimes he won't know.
Even then, I may improv, and just wing it. We'll see how it goes. All right, that's a little bit of our backgrounds. Let's dig a little bit into the characters that we chose. Now, I'll know when I was initially putting the write-up for how this game was going to be, I kind of listed available races to play, and just looking primarily at the town folks we have in Farm RPG, and almost everybody's human. We do have some kind of sentient robots, so I figured, okay, Warforged could work for that. And we do have a talking rabbit, so I figured, okay, we could do the Tabaxi reskinned as kind of any animal, and that could kind of fit that. And that's where we went, and initially was offered up. But as always, adventures tend to be a unique group of people, so we didn't quite stick to those guidelines as far as the race of characters that we're going to play. Let's start with Cole this time, and let's have you tell us a little bit about your character. And I'm going to try to say this name right again, Kokusho.
Sure. So I'm a Dragonborn Ranger of the bronze coloring named Kokusho. Maybe spoilers for Farm RPG, but there is a character that can turn into a dragon. So I thought Dragonborn, that they're kind of part dragon, part human, not entirely sure, was kind of cool. Maybe a little bit out of theme for what Pelican wanted, but yep, it's my character.
Yeah, and we're okay to roll with that, just because we've determined the world where the farms are is kind of set apart from the other kingdoms and lands that exist out there. And this is somewhat stolen from canonical things that we've talked with Firestream about, with potential things coming up in the future of, maybe Far Off Kingdom's going to go to war, so we all need to ship them a bunch of sturdy shields and swords and things like that. So that's kind of how I set it up, is, okay, the farms is a special region. There's only one town. It's the town. These are the races. But if we go off a little bit, that's fine. And so we have a Dragonborn, and a Ranger is the class, right?
Yes.
So what made you kind of choose to go that class? Like, what do you see as kind of like the play style for your character? What are they going to be good at?
Yeah, I kind of was looking for something that they're like sort of on the outskirts of society, not really too interwoven into a bunch of groups. Kind of have like a unique skill set. I thought archery personally is something that I think is cool, and I think it makes a cool or unique character. Yeah, and I thought kind of on those lines with a ranger, I kind of envisioned this elaborate backstory where my character is a little bit mischievous, kind of likes to lie and steal. And one day he stole something that ended up being a little too much and got him into a lot of trouble. And kind of ever since then, he's been sort of on the run, doing odd quest jobs when he can, and kind of helping out the various towns and people he encounters, while maybe stealing from some people, maybe helping others. Kind of just depends on what he finds.
So you went with the criminal background to play into that story.
Yes,
well.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely more of the criminal for the adventure, though, and less so for the profit, I will say.
All right. We're going to move to the next character, who I insist is proficient in playing the ugly Christmas sweater. Let's move to Augie and tell us a little about your character, Astley.
So Astley is, I change up the background every time, but I love playing a Gnome Bard. So I will play a Gnome Bard anytime that I am able to. So I am playing a Gnome Bard. I haven't fully decided yet, but I'm a multi-class with Artificer, just because I think it would be cool when the time comes. But my subrace is a rock gnome, and a little bit about my character. I'll just read off my character's bonds and flaws. For the bonds, I find magic in all its forms to be compelling. The more magical a place, the more I am drawn to it. And as for the flaw, it is I easily lose track of time. By poor sense of time means I'm always late. As for the Christmas sweater that Belligan mentioned, I based the entire character off of a random YouTube video of somebody's mom, like with like little handbells glued onto like a sweater, and like she would just play Christmas songs with them, and I just found it so hilarious, and I still do. So that is my character's main instrument. I mean, he does have other instruments as well, but stealth is not going to happen with that character.
Bards are flashy, not sneaky, right?
Correct, even though they are small.
Well, gnomes, bards can come in any size.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the thing I appreciate is generally whenever you see memes and things talking about bards, they kind of have a theme of trying to seduce everything they run into. And I feel that's not going to be the case with Astley so much.
Absolutely not. No. It will be shenanigans, but not that kind of shenanigans. Better shenanigans.
Awesome. Keep it PG for this podcast.
Absolutely.
RPG. There you go.
There we
PG
go.
RPG, yep. All right. And lastly, Boobun, you did a good job, so kudos to you of sticking to the original guidelines we threw out.
Hey,
Talk about
that's
your character a little bit Spectre.
I'm a rule follower, I guess. Spectre is a rabbit. I mean, I called her a Rabaxi because you gave me the Tabaxi class that I could or race that I could potentially pick and just make it a rabbit. I felt that you threw that in just for me, just because I'm always a rabbit. But yes, Spectre is a rogue. She is like a sneaky thief kind of gal. She's not like an evil sort of thief. She's more of like she steals mostly produce. I'm leaning towards like a Peter Rabbit, like Farmer McGregor sort of theme, very Beatrix Potter style personality. Mischievous kind of character. I feel like all these characters are going to just get into some sneaky stuff together, just because they all seem pretty mischievous. But yeah, she's a sentient rabbit with a knife. So yeah, that's pretty much her.
So that's our cast of characters that we have: Astley, Kokusho, and Spectre. And I kind of wanted to just stick to 3 players to make sure we give everybody time and room to breathe on the podcast to get more than that, even though the traditional D&D party is 4 characters. And I've run games with as many as 10 or 15 at times. It can be a little bit chaotic to do that. So next, I shot all my players a link to a thread that talks about the different type of role players, just to give an idea of what people's play styles might be. And this list is something that's been around for a long time. It goes back to the mid 80s, where they kind of characterize the 4 different type of role players as real men, role players, loonies, and munchkins. So munchkins, some people know the term just from the board game, which is a lot of fun. If you haven't played it, I encourage it. But if you just give a quick rundown, the names kind of indicate what they are as far as the way that they would play. But then there's a whole list of things of how they kind of relate to each other. And the real men are brother in arms. They like their 2-handed swords and basically like He-Man. And role players, the people that really get into their characters and love you being stealthy and tactical and love dramas. Loonies like to harass other players with jokes and throw bananas. And munchkins think they're everything else and use pretty much whatever gives the most pluses. It's kind of the way they work. I feel like all of us when we're young at some point have been munchkins, and some of us may or may not have grown out of it. So Boobun, when you look at that list, what kind of a player do you think you are?
I like to think that I'm somewhere between a real role player and a loony. But I feel like it depends on the setting. I feel like in this setting, I'm probably going to lean towards either a real role player or a real man. Just because I feel like we can't have all loonies here.
We're not playing tunes.
Right, exactly.
But shenanigans are probably in store at some point.
Abound. Yes, I assume we are going to have a lot of shenanigans here. So I'm going to try to be more of a real role player than I normally would be.
All right, awesome. Augie, we'll let you answer this one as well.
Well, Boobud stole my answer of somewhere between a real role player and a loony, but probably, well, I actually don't fully know what the munchkin is, even after your explanation, but I mean, gnome, small, probably that too. Definitely not the macho type, but probably some sort of mix of the other three.
All right, that works. Yeah, I think a loon is what I'm getting from a lot of your description of the character, and that's fine for the shenanigans part. Cole, granted, you played primarily in grade school. How do you see your play style?
Yeah, so I think don't really want to repeat the same answer, but I think for this group, I feel like we're all very loony. So we're gonna need some more, I guess, non-looniness to actually maybe progress in actually accomplishing something. So probably will tend to be more towards maybe the real role player. My character itself seems to be somewhat of a macho type who would actually be in the real man category. And then I feel like as I understand more of what's going on and get more into character stats and things, I might delve into being a munchkin. So I'll try to avoid that. But I could definitely see myself doing that as I become more familiar with everything.
Let me give just a couple points of reference for the different type of role players I was talking about for Augie's benefit. I linked a page that has a bunch of these. This is their favorite way to die. Real men like to die in battle with their boots on, going down swinging. Role players on their deathbeds after lengthy, dramatic farewell speeches. Loonies laughing while jumping into a portable hole and carrying a bag of holding. And munchkins die. You're kidding, right? Not going to happen to them. Let's see. Favorite melee weapon. Real men like pole axes. Real role players like rapiers and mangaushes. Loonies like stage knives. And the munchkin, of course, is whatever gives the most pluses.
That is
just a couple of points.
All of the weapons the munchkins have that same answer.
Whatever gives the most. Yep, it is.
That's all I care about, just the stats.
They like stats.
It's min-maxing, whatever. Yep, exactly.
I know so many munchkins. I know so many in real life.
Yeah, as teenagers, we kind of found this article and we're reading it, and we all realized we're all a bunch of munchkins. We should change up our game a little bit. It was an eye-awakening moment for me as a 16-year-old.
I mean, once you kind of know how everything works, it's kind of hard not to be a munchkin. Like, it's like, really, should I not min-max here? Do I have to do this? Like, can sometimes be hard to not be a munchkin.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the game, but definitely. All right. Now that we've introduced our characters and everybody's role-playing styles a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the game in the farm RPG world. As we mentioned, it's not a standard D&D fantasy game. It's set in the world of farm RPG, which means we're kind of 17th century-ish, steampunk kind of inspired with machinery and things like that, with a hint of magic. So heavily influenced by Final Fantasy 6 and 3 and those type of genres, which fits a lot of Firestream games. So the approach I'm taking to the world really is that's where we're at. There's some industrialism. I mentioned to my players that magic isn't common, and What I mean by that is not that magic doesn't exist. It's there. Obviously, we have characters that are, all of our characters at some point are capable of casting spells if they so choose, depending on kind of what subclasses they go later on. But just that people don't do it because it takes effort, right? Why spend years learning how to cast light when you can go buy a lantern or some kind of a machine to do a task for you? So kind of I see technology being at the point where it's kind of taking over everyday life. And that's really what I meant by that. So magic is still there. The world itself is the farms. This particular region has a lot of farmers. For some reason, crops grow ridiculously fast here, and so they export a lot of crops. We've kind of decided that everything that is in the game as far as locations with exploring and fishing are locations in game, places that are in the town, which we don't have a name for. It's just the town. It's the only one. Are actually there. So you have a bank and a market, the steak market, farmer's market, those kind of things. We do have a mayor of the town. It goes by Trid. And that's kind of the basis that we started with. We built on that a little bit. But I wanted to kind of go around the table again as well with all of our players and referring to the setting. What do you look forward to specifically with this game, with the setting being what is a farm RPG? Or maybe the way I should word that is, with the setting being farm RPG, what do you see kind of the flair on that'll bring into a D&D game as opposed to a traditional fantasy game? And we'll keep to our order of flip-flopping which way I go and stick with Cole on this one.
Oh, no. So I think what kind of makes it cool is that a lot of the setting, at least to begin with, is already known from the game. Like, we have a whole list of locations that we could explore, I guess places we could go fishing, which maybe for our context is not fishing, but just, another exploring location. So I think it'll be kind of cool to see how that weaves in with some of the adventures we get up to. So I think personally, I think Mount Bannon is a very cool location. Like, it's this, I forget if it's exactly stated in the game, but this dormant volcano type of mountain thing. There's a lot of resources there and a lot of potential of treasure and, I don't know, maybe other creatures lurking about that can be interacted with.
Awesome. Frantically taking notes here. Cole wants a adventure that's going to take place in Mount Bannon. And we can call it that, not Mount Bacon, right?
Well,
whatever you want to do.
We might have to call it Mount Bacon.
Yeah, some of those early quests, I think it was Vincent sent you on to go get bacon, and the only place to do it for a while was at Mount Bannon before we had pigs.
Maybe we inspire some in-game quests based on what we get up to or something like that. So
very possible.
Looking forward to.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, because we're using the lore of Farm RPG, but we're also going to create a lot of our own lore that could potentially be used in quests at some point. All right, let's jump to Augie and kind of get your input on the world of Farm RPG as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting, and what are you looking forward to with it?
So I have two answers for this, and the first is raptor eggs. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but raptor eggs is one of my two answers. And then the second answer is exploring a creepy, dark place, and you hear a weird sound or something fell, or turn around, and Buddy is just there. That is, I think it would be fun to try and interact with Buddy if that were possible, because he lives in a cave, and as adventurers, that is a common place to explore. So it could happen. It does not have to.
Well, it could. We could describe the lore. Maybe when we're taking place here, people don't know about Buddy living in the cave just yet. So maybe something we'll discover along the way.
Aha.
All right, next, let's come to Boobun.
Yeah, so I'd like to elaborate just on what Cole said. There's a lot here that we know the location, we know like the general gist of the area, but there's not a lot of lore in a lot of these places. So I feel like exploring the lore that either we make up or that is potentially there that we could root out is going to be a blast, especially like even characters that we don't really hear a lot from. I mean, we could run into literally any of the NPCs. So I'm really looking forward to interacting with, like Buddy and, Vincent and Borgin and everybody. I'm just kind of excited to hang out with these people in a game space.
All right, awesome. I'm realizing now we should have pinned at some point, and maybe I didn't link it in here, my write-up on the setting they were going to do. But no, I think that's a good point of discussion, is some of the NPCs and things that we have established are going to be here, and also digging into some of the lore of those characters and maybe developing some of our own as well.
How about you, Belligan? What are you looking forward to as the game master that's a bit different this time than other games you've run?
That's a great question. So a couple things I'm looking forward to, and one of them really goes hand in hand with what Boobun was saying, but kind of exploring and developing some of the lore on some of the characters and NPCs that in the game that we know and love, but now we get to play with them some more. Some of the other things I'm looking forward to is getting more input from everybody else and kind of world building. So as a DM, I don't look at this as my game and I'm determining everything that's going on. I like to put some of the responsibility on my players to do a lot of that world building as we go along. So that's what I'm looking forward to, that. And I've been brainstorming ideas for adventures and quests for us to go on. So this doesn't have an overarching theme. Like, this isn't a game where we're going to go find each part of the rod of 7 parts, or we're not looking for the 6 magical crystals or something, right? There's not like an end game overarching story that we have in mind just yet for what's going to happen. Maybe we'll develop something. But we have kind of set up, and we'll talk about this a little bit, kind of a system of how we're going to be playing and determining what we're doing. Let's dig into that a little bit next, kind of go off script just a little bit. But when we initially did our character creation, we kind of talked about some of the things like, do the characters know each other? Do they not? And maybe as kind of a lazy GM gimmick, I just said, all right, you guys know each other and you're part of an adventuring guild. And we're going to start on an adventure. And at the start of the game, we're going to be, and we'll probably pick this up, but we're going to be doing a task for Borgin. So Borgin's a trader who comes and goes between the town where all the farms are and the other kingdoms with odd trinkets and things. And while coming to town, he lost something in Misty Forest. And specifically, there's a golden chalice he lost. And so he has contacted the Adventurers Guild to go find it for him while he's running a shop in town. So that's kind of where we're going to start, maybe a little bit of spoilers. But that brought up the question, well, let's talk about the Adventure Guild a little bit. So I asked you guys some questions. And do you remember what we decided about the Adventuring Guild?
Vaguely.
I think what are we called? Firewire?
Yeah, the
Yes.
Firewire Adventurers Guild.
And we're working on getting we're working to pay our entry fee into a larger portion of them, I believe, is what we discussed.
Yeah,
if I'm remembering correctly.
We're not actually.
So we're not
in the
official.
We're self-proclaimed Adventurers Guild, but there are not very many of us, and the main branches do not know that we exist yet, but they will.
The small group of hooligans just decided that they were going to do it and join a larger overarching Adventurers Guild in whatever land we exist in.
Yeah, that's the premises. So the Firewire Adventures Guild is an adventures guild that has branches throughout the kingdoms in all different places. So that's kind of a play on Firestream's name, Firewire, which also happens to be a high-speed protocol. I think Apple primarily used, maybe someone else, for connecting devices at some point.
I just thought it sounded
some fun, nerdy stuff there, right? It's our link of communication. So our adventurers have decided to establish their own chapter at the town among the farms of the Firewire Adventures Guild. And they're working on earning up their dues for their initial establishment. So it's not super official just yet, but they're also the only Adventurers Guild at all in town right now.
There's nobody to tell us we can't do that.
So that is kind of our introduction to the game that we're going to be playing for D&D and the Farm RPG. We have a group of adventurers, part of the Firewire Adventurers Guild. They have some benefits from that, maybe a lazy GM tool, but being part of the guild means they get a stipend for all their daily living costs, so we don't have to track little piddly fart purchases here and there. We can worry about the bigger fun things because there is a farmer's market in town that or farm supply that you can buy magic items with gold, for example. Or when Borgin comes to town, he'll trade for ancient coins, so we can use those for fun goodies and things as well. So we can worry about the fun part and not that. Also being the Adventurers Guild, it gives a place for people to come and put job postings up, and our adventurers will get the chance to decide which jobs are worth their times and which ones aren't. So we're going to start off with this adventure looking for Borgin's golden chalice. He suspects there might have been some rodents of unusual size involved. And we'll see where it goes from there.
I'm excited.
All right. I had one last question. Awesome. One last question for everybody. What are you going to do with all the money Bellogan bribed you with to actually play this game?
Buy small screws. I'm like 2,000 short.
Oh my god. But I feel like, if anything, I bribed Belligan. I didn't offer anything.
Maybe.
But I did bribe him.
I'm just laughing because last week I saw a meme with this, where it's the girl that's going on a date with the teenager, and the mom said, just be careful, guys only want one thing. The answer was a D&D group with 3+ players that plays at least once a week.
Yes. Yes. That's it. That's factually correct.
I think that's correct. Yes, I'm on that train too. That's what I wish for also.
There we go.
Just consistent group.
Yep. All right. So there you have it. That is the premises for D&D on the Farm RPG, our players and the characters they're going to be playing. This is going to be, unless I get told otherwise, on the Farm RPG podcast. We'll just label the episodes a little bit differently for those to follow along. Maybe it'll grow into something completely different as we move along or not. Hopefully you enjoy it. If this isn't your cup of tea, you are welcome to skip these episodes and stick to the other ones. And with that, we'll wrap this up. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Do we need to interweave some Farm RPG knowledge into the adventures? People are interested.
Got to keep them
Maybe
on the hook.
we will. Here's the secret strategy to solve
Misty,
the vault in 2 guesses.
You can get your shiny beetles here, which drop at approximately this drop rate.
We will read.
I'll just trade you a large net to listen to the podcast.
Well, I'll read. We could just play the quests that are already in the game and just read them out loud for Belligan.
Since he doesn't read the quests,
it will force his hand.
No one reads the quests.
99 bottles and corn gel are going to take quite a few episodes, folks. Just warning you.
Quite a few episodes, just like they took quite a few days. It's realistic.
Now I need to look back at the Misty Forest quests and see if I can interweave any of those into the finding Borgin's chalice.
All right. We'll have to come up with some kind of fancy sign off for the end of these episodes.
Bye.
Whatever that might be.
Yeah, just bye.
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 Bye. Love
Oh, wait.
you.
Shoot.
Hang up the phone.
Ta-ta.